Om Akhandam Satchidanandam Avang Manasagocharam Atmanam Akhiladharam Ashrayebhishta Siddhai. So we have been studying the Vedantasara, and let us remember the purpose of studying the Vedantasara, that it will give us a foundation for an entry into the Upanishads. So in the Vedantasara, we were on text number 15. What is going on now? When we enter into the study of any of these classical texts, we know that there are 4 preliminaries which we have to take care of, which we have to pay attention to. They are called Anubandha Catustaya. These are the 4 preliminaries which encourage us, which inspire us to study the text. One is Vishaya, what is the subject matter? The second one is Adhikari, who is qualified to study it. In fact, Adhikari is first because we are studying that now. Adhikari, who is qualified to study it. Subject matter, what is it that we are studying? What's the book about? Third is Sambandha, relation between the subject matter and the text itself. And then the last one is Prayojana, which means the purpose, the goal. What are we studying? What do we intend to get out of this? So in that, the first topic, first preliminary is the discussion of Adhikari, who's qualified. We remember that by Adhikari, they mean if a person is properly qualified, then a systematic study of the text will lead to enlightenment, will lead to the promised results. But even if we lack the qualifications, we'll still gain something by study of the text. Now, what are the qualifications? This was outlined in this very long sentence in text number 6. If you remember, Adhikari tu vidhivad adhita veda vedangatvena apatato adhigata akhilat vedartha asmin janmani janmantareva kamya nishiddha vajjana purassaram nitya naimittika prayashchitta upasana anushtanena nirgata akhila kalmashataya nitanta nirmala swantaha sadhana chatushtaya sampanna pramata. A long sentence which we broke up into parts, and we took a look at all the components. Basically, the idea was that by leading a moral life, a religious life, one becomes competent for the study of Vedanta. What is the nature of this competence? 4 characteristics. They're called Sadhana Chatushtaya, the 4-fold practices which enable us to study Vedanta fruitfully. So the last phrase is important. In this long sentence in text 6, Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampanna Pramata Adhikari. Adhikari means the qualified student. And what do these words mean? Pramata, the knower, the inquirer, the one who wants to know, who has these 4 qualifications. Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampanna, equipped with the 4 qualifications. All right. So what are these very important 4 qualifications? That's in text number 15, where we are starting today. This is the important part. What are the 4 qualifications? Don't confuse it with the 4 preliminaries. 4 preliminaries are the competent student, the subject matter, the relation between the text and the subject matter, and then the purpose of the study. That's the 4 preliminaries. We're studying that. In the 4 preliminaries, in the first one, competent student needs 4 qualities or 4 practices. That's what we are doing now. Sadhana Chatushtaya. Text number 15. Sadhanani nitya anitya vastu viveka ihamutrartha phalabhoga viraga shamadi shatka sampatti mumukshuttvani. So these are the 4 qualifications. What are they? The means to the attainment of knowledge are: 1. Discrimination, or let us say discernment, between things permanent and transient, between what is permanent, eternal, what is transient, non-eternal, temporary, changing. 1. 2. Renunciation of the enjoyments of the fruits of actions in this world and hereafter. That means not pursuing worldly goals or even other worldly goals. We'll see what that means. 3rd, The 6 treasures, basically discipline, Shat Sampatti, such as control of the mind, etc. And 4th, probably the most important, the desire for spiritual freedom. So what Sri Ramakrishna used to call Vyakulata. In the Bhakti language, it is Vyakulata. Vyakulata means an intense restlessness for God, a deep restlessness, divine discontent for God realization, a hunger, a thirst for God. That is called Vyakulata. That's in the language of bhakti, devotion. The same thing in this path is called mumukshutvam, intense desire for freedom, an intense inquiry. So these are the 4 qualifications. Now, just a couple of words before we go in. One is that the fourfold qualifications, when we go into this, when you listen to this list, you may have this question. It sounds like a strange list. When you want somebody to be spiritual, to be a spiritual person, what are the qualifications you would expect of a saintly person? You know, the person must be honest, must be loving, must be unselfish, must be disciplined. But these seem to be quite different from that list. So what's going on here is all that is already assumed by leading a moral life, a dharmic life, which has 2 components, a moral life and a religious life. By leading a good life, one is already a good person. One is already a good person. So these are higher practices which prepare the ground for Vedanta. So the basic idea of being a good person is assumed. It's already known. One can't be a villain and then jump to enlightenment. One has to go through a period of moral and ethical life. That's one. I know that Swamis, in our monastery, Swami Ashokanji and others also, they used to tell young men who would come to become monks, would say, become a gentleman first. So that's a very good way of putting it. Before you acquire these qualities, one is a gentleman. That means a good person first, and then a good person, a cultured person, and then you acquire these qualities. Second thing I wanted to say was, don't be intimidated. As we go into it, don't be intimidated by this and feel helpless. Oh, I don't have these qualities. Maybe it's not for me. No, it is for everybody. According to Advaita Vedanta, we are Brahman. Why should it not be for me? This whole book is about what I truly am. So maybe I have many problems with the conditioning of my mind. Maybe I have physical problems and so on and so forth. But my nature is that I am the spirit. I am Brahman. I am one with God. Why should it be beyond me? As Ramana Maharshi said, I've said again and again, somebody went and asked him, am I qualified for Vedanta? And he said, did you say I? His method was, who am I? So if you can say I, you're qualified. If you can just say I, everybody can say I. So you're qualified to ask, who am I? You're therefore qualified for Vedanta. So yes, in one sense, we are all qualified, just that maybe we don't have enough of these qualities. They are not at the level of excellence. So we need to keep an eye. When you drive, you keep an eye on the gas, you keep an eye on your speed, you keep an eye on certain things when you're driving. Similarly, in the spiritual path, there are certain things you need to keep an eye on. And these 4 are very important. This is where the shoe pinches. In practical terms, when we run into trouble in spiritual life, we'll almost always notice it is something to do with these 4, one or more of these. You come back and look at it. Where am I lacking? Do I lack dispassion? Do I lack conviction that there is this ultimate reality? Do I lack discipline? Or do I lack the motivation? That mumukshutvam, the final one. All right, now let's get into it. So we know by now the method. They'll give us a list, and then they'll take up each item in the list and define it. So fourfold practices, the fourfold means for attaining, let's just call it means, 4 means for attaining knowledge. First one, it is called Viveka. Viveka, that's where the name Vivekananda comes from. Viveka means Vivich Prithak Karana in Sanskrit, to separate, to discern between 2 things. 2 things which are coming to us mixed up. Right and wrong, they come to us mixed up. And it's a common term in all Indian languages. In Bengali, we say Vivek. It stands for conscience, that something that tells me what is right and what is wrong. So that's for everybody. But here Viveka is in a higher spiritual sense, the ability to distinguish between the eternal and the non-eternal. There is God, or there is Brahman, the ultimate reality, and there is this world. So Vivek. It's all entirely an inner conviction, an inner clarity. Number 16. Nitya nitya vastu viveka stavat brahmaiva nityam vastu tato anyad akhilam anityamiti vivechanam. So what is viveka? Nitya anitya vastu viveka. Viveka means the ability to separate, and there may be different kinds of viveka, as I said. The ability to distinguish between right and wrong, for example. But here what is meant? The ability to discern between what is eternal, permanent, and what is transient, non-eternal, temporary. The kind of feeling that there is a spiritual reality, which is eternal, which is worth having, worthwhile. And the rest in this world, whatever is going on, is non-eternal, secondary, unimportant. So what is this? Viveka, he says, Brahmaiva nityam vastu. The eternal reality is Brahman. He will define what is Brahman later on. So Brahmaiva nityam vastu. Brahman is the eternal reality. Tato anyat, other than that, anyat, other than Brahman, akhilam, everything else, whatever is other than Brahman, anityamiti is non-eternal, secondary, unimportant, but non-eternal. Iti vivechanam, this insight, this separation, discernment. Discernment is a very good word. Vivechanam is discernment. So this discernment is called viveka. This is very important. Then the next one, Vairagya. Vairagya means mind has been colored, purifying or cleansing the mind of this coloring. What coloring? The coloring of the world. Mind has been dipped in the dye of the world so much, it has taken on the color of the world. It has to be cleansed. So Vairagya. Raga also means attachment. Vairagya means dispassion. Passion, dispassion. So number 17, text number 17. What is Vairagya? Adhikanam srak chandana vanitadi vishaya bhoganam karmajanyataya anityatvad amushmikanam api amritadi vishaya bhoganam anityataya tebhyo nitaram viratihi ihamutrartha phalabhoga viragaha. Vairagya, here it's called viraga, dispassion. Dispassion for what? Iha amutra artha phala bhoga viraga. Dispassion towards trying to enjoy the results of my karma. Here and hereafter. Iha, here. Amutra, hereafter. That means in heaven, after death. So the idea in the Vedic religion and in Hinduism, in fact, in Buddhism and all the other Indian religions is that everything is ruled by karma. Good karma leads to merit. In Sanskrit, it is called punya. And that generates happiness. Happiness means things will go well for you. Body will be healthy, people will be nice to you, you will earn money, if you'll be successful in your job and your education, in your relationships, things will generally go well for you. So that is a sign of good karma. But go well for you in the worldly sense. And bad karma, so that leads to what is called papa or demerit. And that generates dukkha, suffering, disease, failure, frustration, unhappiness, bad relationships, all those things, whatever is unpleasant in life comes from our bad karma. And both of are our karma, what we have done. This is something that we have arranged for ourselves. And Swami Vivekananda used to say, none to blame. So there is no one else to blame. It is action and consequence, cause and effect. So this is from our past karma, which is giving results now. So if you want a very good life, you would obviously, that you're encouraged to do good karma. Dharma is good karma. Consciously done ethical action is dharma. Consciously done unethical action is adharma. So dharma leads to punya, merit. Punya leads to sukha, happiness. Adharma leads to papa, demerit, and demerit leads to dukkha, unhappiness. This is the law of karma. It not only applies here in this world, it also applies to after death. So we have had many lives, and future lives are also ruled by karma. In between lives, we go to what are called hells or heavens. These are all temporary places. Hells are the nasty places. There are 7 of them. And the heavens are the good places. There are 7 of those, actually 14 worlds. One of them actually in between is the earth. So actually the hells are fewer in number. There are 6, unless you count the earth as a hell also. So there are these 14 worlds. Half of them are better, each a higher one. Higher means subtler and subtler. Those are better and better. And the grosser ones are worse and worse. After death, one goes to one of these places, depending on one's karma. So good karma, you go to heaven, and things are very nice. It's a party there. You needn't even wear your mask. So you can party for centuries together. And they have a choice of drinks, and the drinks there are all varieties of what is called Amrita Nectar. So the gods drink that. I don't know if they get, maybe it comes in different flavors, orange flavor, lime flavor, whatever. They don't get bored. And because they drink that, they are immortal. Immortal means they last for a long time, and they don't have old age, they don't have disease, they don't have hunger and thirst. So it's just being merry. But that's also limited. Once our good karma runs out, we are back. The Gita says, Shine punya matyalokam vishanti. When our good karma runs out, as we are having fun, we are using up all our credit. But equally, when we suffer, we're also using up our bad karma, we're exhausting our bad karma. So in that sense, suffering is good and enjoying is bad, because you're using up all your credit by enjoying, and you're exhausting bad karma by suffering. Anyhow, we come back from there. So after that also we come back. What he's saying here is all of it is worthless. This whole thing is worldly. This world, heavens and hells, heavens, hell and earth, all of those, you should turn away from this if you want Vedanta, if you want Vedanta, if you want enlightenment. This is all within the cycle of Maya. So all of this is what was earlier classified as anitya. Nitya, anitya, eternal, non-eternal, all these are non-eternal. Whatever you get in this world, including this very life, this body, all non-eternal. It'll go away one day. And whatever we get in heavens also, those are also, even if they last a long time, they're also non-eternal. One day it'll be over and it'll be back here again. So it's a wise person who would give all those up. We had this Swami who explained it very nicely, this whole concept of heaven in Vedanta. Swami Sarvapriyananda, who was the head of our Vedanta Society in South Africa. He founded our Vedanta work in South Africa. He came to this country. There are a few people. I think Peter Fell is here in this today's class, maybe. He knew, he was close to Swami Sarvapriyananda. So he had a wonderful way of explaining things. This whole idea of heaven. He says, what is it like? So you earn a lot of money, and then you use that money to buy a ticket from South Africa to Mumbai, maybe. We board the plane in Johannesburg, and there is an air hostess who will come and say, come, this is your seat. This is exactly Vedic language. You know, when one dies, a divine form appears and says, Ehi, come here. This is the world earned by you by your merits. So by performing many Vedic sacrifices, you have accumulated punya, a lot of merit, and hence you get to go to this very special, Fiji or some Hawaii or something like that, heavenly level. So the air hostess comes and says, come, this is your seat. And you sit down, and it's cool, air conditioned, and it's all very nice and comfortable. Then you are at 36,000 feet and cruising at 800 miles an hour. And then you watch movies, and there is food and drink brought to you. Everything is nice. And then you're told, You're descending into Mumbai. And then when things are really going well and you're happy, you say, all right, thank you for flying with Air India. We have reached Mumbai. The temperature is 40 degrees. Or, the temperature is like 100 degrees outside in Fahrenheit and with 100% humidity. Thank you for flying with us. And we say, no, I want to stay here. This is nice. And so then you have to buy a ticket again, come back again, fly with us again, which means it's like you're back to the earth. You have to earn your punya again to buy a ticket for the heavenly airlines. So it's a cycle, and it's exhausted. So this is here it's called amutra phala bhoga. Amutra means hereafter. Phala artha bhoga. Phala means karma phala, the result of karma. Artha, what is provided by that. Bhoga, enjoyment. This is what one has to turn away from. I remember one more word about this. Many years ago when we were studying this, the Swami who was teaching us, I think it's Swami Shivamayanji, probably. So when you say that you, to be a Vedanta student, you must give up enjoyment here and hereafter. So we all said, many of us said, oh, we don't want heaven. We don't want these heavenly pleasures. And the Swami smiled and said, just because you don't believe in heaven, that's why you're so eager to give it up. Remember, our ancestors actually believed that these things, and they are true. So you can't give up a cookie in this world and you want to give up heavenly pleasures. Not so easy. So, but one has to, these are all non-eternal. And that's why we turn away from it. And what Vedanta promises is eternal. Now let's break it up. Adhikanam, the objects which we will have in this world, in this life, ahika. What are they? Examples. Shrak, I'll explain later. Shrak means sandal paste. Shrak is a garland, flower garland. Chandana, sandal paste. Vanita, women, etc. Adi, etc. Vishaya bhoga, and sources of enjoyment. Karma janyataya, because they are produced by work, by the result of action. Anitya, the enjoyment will be temporary, will be impermanent. Amushmikanam, the hereafter, the enjoyments hereafter. What are they? Api means also, hereafter also. Amrita adi, nectar, etc. All the heavenly pleasures like nectar, etc. Vishaya bhoga, enjoyment of heavenly objects. Vishaya means objects, here it means heavenly objects. Anityataya, they are also impermanent. One day it will be over. And you'll say that it is time to get down. Thank you for flying with us. 100 degrees outside. Have a nice day. Tebhyo nitaram virati. From all of this, nitaram, consistently withdrawal from all of this. These are no longer my goals. You may be in the middle of it. You may be here in the middle of all of this. Your past karma will keep producing. Will keep on giving results, and you will keep on getting this. If you do a job, you'll get your salary. If you are, you can be in the middle of your family, you could be in the middle of your relationship, all those things are there. But that's no longer your goal in life. You are not looking to those things to produce, to give you peace or happiness. You know their limitations. Just one word here. So what does it mean, flower garlands? Flower garlands and sandal paste is the ancient equivalent of jewels and Tiffany's and perfumes. And this reference to women, remember, it was like taught to mostly men and to monks. So that's why the reference to women as objects of enjoyment. So this, Sri Ramakrishna, somebody said, was he misogynistic? He would keep warning his disciples against women. But his women disciples said that he again and again warned them against too much closeness to men. So the principle here is the same. All right. All right. Now let me move on. You hold on to the questions. You can chat. You can give the questions, or you can raise your hand. We'll just finish these and then I'll take them up. Then 18. Shamadayastu Shama Damo Uparati Titiksha Samadhana Shraddhakhyaha. The Shama, etc., the sixfold treasure are Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, Samadhana, Shraddha. So what do they mean? The sixfold treasures are restraining of the outgoing mental propensities, Shama. Dhamma is the restraining of the external sense organs. Uparati is the withdrawing of the self, or withdrawal of the mind from the world. Titiksha is forbearance. Samadhana is focus. And Shraddha is faith. So here's a little bit of cheating here. Four means for realization. So in the third means, they have packed in 6 more. So the total is now 9. Viveka, Vairagya, then 6 more. And then finally Mumukshutva. So 9 in total. What are these 6? They are disciplines of various sorts. We will see them in detail one by one. First, Shama, number 19. Shamastavat Shravanadi Vyatirikta Vishayebhyo Manaso Nigraha. Shama is the curbing of the mind from all objects except hearing, etc. So what does this mean? Shama is calmness of mind, quietening of the restlessness of the mind. Shamastavat. So Shama means Shravanadi Vyatirikta Vishayebhya. Manaso Nigraha. Control of the mind, pulling back the mind from everything other than Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. That means Vedanta. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana means engaging the mind in study and in reasoning and in meditation. Basically, the 3 practices of Vedanta. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. What we are doing right now is Shravana. Right now we are doing Shravana. When you ask questions and discuss it, that is Manana. And then when clarity comes, you settle down with it, that is Nididhyasana. And it says here, withdrawal of the mind. Shama is withdrawal of the mind, but not withdrawal from everything. Withdrawal from everything except this. That means focus on these 3 activities. Swami Vivekananda said it again. He said, keep these high thoughts before the mind again and again. We have hypnotized ourselves into pettiness, into smallness. So this thing is dehypnotization. Keep these high Vedantic thoughts before your mind all the time. Then, so you can see if those are following the Sanskrit. So by the way, Sanskrit, don't be put off. If you're not interested, not following the Sanskrit, there's no problem at all. Those who have the PDF, which I had sent, there the transliteration is also there. In the English, you can follow the Sanskrit if you just want to. But if you don't want to, that's all right. We'll translate every word. If I'm missing something, you should flag it. You should raise your hand and say, what does this word mean? What did you just say? So those are following the Sanskrit. Shravana Adi. Shravana means hearing, Adi, etc. etc. Manana Nididhyasana, the 3. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Vyatirikta, other than these 3. Vyatirikta, other than these 3. Vishayebhyo, matters or subjects, other than these 3. Manasa Nigraha, pulling the mind back from things other than these 3. The next, Damaha. Damaha means 20. Bahyendriyanam tadvyatirikta vishayebhyo nivartanam. Dhamma is the restraint of the external organs from all objects except that. Except that means that what? That means Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, what was referred to earlier. Vedanta, basically. Apart from your spiritual pursuit, restrain the external organs from. External organs means your feet and your hands and your eyes and ears. So one wants to take a walk and go somewhere. One wants to see a movie or catch a Broadway show. All of it is nice. One wants to go out and relax with friends over the weekend. All of it is nice. But when one has a high purpose like this, one must pull back. One must minimize or stop all activities, all non-essential things. They have to be given up. And this is nothing special. Any high pursuit, if you are a writer, if you are a scientist, if you're pursuing any kind of career that demands attention, you have to give up whatever distracts you. And you automatically do. Remember when we were getting ready for university examinations, how much we set aside everything else in life, almost sometimes even forgetting to eat or sleep. I sometimes think that realizing God or becoming enlightened is a little easier than getting through all the exams that we have gone through in our childhood or youth. So it takes probably less effort and energy. But focus is demanded. A certain period of focus. Mastery in any field. Who was that who spoke about the 10K rule, 10,000 hours rule? The Malcolm Gladwell. I read about it in Gladwell's book. Yes, Malcolm Gladwell. So he studied the lives of masters in different fields, and he found approximately they had put in 10,000 hours of concentrated practice. So maybe 5 or 6 hours a day for a period of few years. And somebody was Bill Gates was a coder, and somebody else was an athlete, and so on. And somebody else was a writer. But several thousand hours of practice goes in, and then is the breakthrough. You become a master of that. Something like that. It's nothing very esoteric and nothing very mystical. One must bear down on the subject for some time. Then, so the meaning is clear here. Then the third of these 6 treasures is uparati. Literally, rati means engagement with the world, especially with sensual pleasures. Uparati is the reversal of that, pulling back. 21. Nivartitanam etesham tad vyatirikta vishayebhya uparamanam uparati athava vihitanam karmanam vidhina parityagaha. So two interpretations of uparati he has given here. This is one of the third of the 6-fold treasures. So 2 interpretations. 1, the time and energy that one has saved by Shama and Dhamma, that one must not flow back into worldly activities, to restrain oneself. So you know, a lot of people, especially young people, complain about distractions, complain about inability to maintain focus. It is the lack of this uparati. You're making an effort. Maybe you have a study schedule all planned out, how you're going to focus, but they are surrounded by a variety of distractions, and you tend to flow back into them again once in a while, and it breaks the rhythm of the study. I was reading a new book on attention, and it says the dangers of mobiles and social media and all. That little ping on the mobile, like maybe a text has come or something. It says when you are concentrating intensely, maybe studying or doing an assignment or something, and that one ping, and you pick up the mobile, look at it, and then put it down. That's all, few seconds. That one disturbance, it takes you around 21 minutes to get back into that flow again. Imagine the tremendous disruption. You're studying for 1 hour, a single disruption, 2 disruptions. You take now 20 minutes each to get back into full concentration. So I don't know if that is true, but the point is that the disruptions caused by these little distractions are quite big, are much larger, much more damaging than we thought. Just by the way, there is this new documentary. It's called The Social Dilemma. So a lot of young people I hear in universities and all, they are disturbed by this, by seeing how much of an impact social media has on us. And I've heard of people actually going off Facebook and Twitter and all the different kinds of social media platforms. They were scared by this new documentary, what kind of damage it does to concentration, to focus. Now, uparati, this one word here, uparati, is pulling back and not flowing back again into the world. Nivartitanam etesham, having with the ones which have been withdrawn. Etesham means Shama and Dhamma, the mind and the external organs, which have been pulled back from being scattered in the world, which have been pulled back. Tad vyatirikta vishayebhya uparamanam, having pulled back and don't allow them to flow back again. Uparamanam means Ramanam means enjoyment in that. Don't go back and start, being in the midst, lapsing back into it. Don't do that. Or athava, alternative interpretation. I'll tell you what it actually says, but I'll tell you what it means. Athava, alternative, become a monk. That's what it means here. Vihitanam karmanam vidhina parityaga. That's a technical way of saying become a monk. Vihitanam karmanam, the Vedic duties prescribed for householders. Vidhina, in procedurally, parityaga, renounce. Procedurally renounce is the ceremony for becoming sannyasi. It is called Viraja Homa. So that is a Vedic ceremony all monks have to undergo. So that is basically your religion is telling you officially that you need not follow the precepts, the commandments of religion for household life anymore. You are free. Because why are you free? Not because I'm tired of it, I give up, I quit. No, because you're going to the next level, that I want only God realization, nothing else. For that reason, you're set free from all other obligations, but for no other reasons. So in India, monasticism was seen in this way. Everybody had certain obligations imposed upon them by religion. This kind of ritual you have to perform. These are the duties you have to perform for your parents, and so on and so forth. So many things are there for society. All of that you're set free from if you make up your mind that I don't want anything in this world or in the next world. I only want enlightenment. Then you can be set free from it. And he says here, a secondary meaning of uparati could be just become a monk. So he gives that option also. Vihitanam, recommended or prescribed. Karmanam, rituals. These are Vedic rituals. Vidhina, parityaga. Parityaga, renouncing. Not just giving up. Vidhina, procedurally, with the proper ceremony. So monks let go of rituals. But to let go of rituals, also there's a ritual. And that is called the Viraja Homa, which is officially you are set free. So if you do that, then you are a monk. 22nd. Titiksha. Text number 22nd. Titiksha shitoshnadi dvanda sahishnuta. Titiksha is the endurance of heat and cold and other pairs of opposites. Basically spiritual fortitude. The world will throw a lot of trouble at you. Not just because you're being spiritual. I'm being spiritual. I'm being persecuted for it. Maybe in certain respects. But whatever one wants to do in the world, you want to raise a family, you want to maintain a relationship, you want to hold on to a job, how much trouble you put up with from your youth to middle age to old age, how much trouble you put up with. So that much toughness must be there. Maybe you are sick, but there's a client coming and you have to go out to the airport to meet him. There's no excuse. You have to go. Maybe you don't feel like it, but the children have to be, fed and gotten ready and seen off to school and then picked up from school. You have to do it. It's not optional. So you have gone through all of that. So it takes a lot of toughness to get through the duties imposed by the world. Similarly, in spiritual life also, don't sacrifice your spiritual life because there are problems. Often what happens is there is illness or there is unhappiness. There's some hassle in the world outside. And the first thing to be sacrificed is, today there's too much work, so I won't meditate. Today my mind is disturbed, I won't go to class. No, this is what is being said here. Whatever the world throws at you, come, what is it? High water, hell or high water? What is the phrase? I will attend the class. I will meditate. I will pray. Whatever your spiritual practice is, you must do it. I have seen so many such examples. Famous examples are, of course, there. There was this disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his disciples are going to come to this person's house. The evening will be spent and the night will be spent in kirtan, in ecstatic singing and dancing and taking the name of the Lord. And the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming to your house. And that gentleman, he got the news that his only son had died just that day. And he never told anybody. Only he knew. But somehow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also knew. The whole evening was spent in taking the name of the Lord, in kirtan, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again and again went into samadhi. But he embraced that man. So that kind of spiritual toughness. Even the worst thing that the world will throw at me, I will not. There is this story about M, the writer of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. There's so many such stories. The writer of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, M. So he was in Banaras at that time, and he would read the Bhagavatam for the monks, if I remember correctly. Every evening after the Arati, there would be a reading, and the monks would gather around. One day he was going to the reading, and somebody came, and there was a telegram, handed it to him. He read the telegram, and he put it in his pocket, and he went, and he did the Bhagavatam reading. Somebody asked him, what was the telegram about? Oh, one of the monks said to the other monk when the reading was going on, do you know that telegram I handed him? His son or daughter has passed away. He hears this news, he puts it in his pocket, and he goes on and does it. This is Titiksha. This is, of course, a very high order, very high order. I personally remember once I was sick in the hospital and I was on IV. I was lying down. So this intravenous is there. And I thought, okay, I'm excused today. Like I'm sick. So I don't have to, I can do just a little bit of the japa and that's it, finished. After all, I'm very sick. And I saw this old monk who had been sent for an operation. After the procedure was done, after the anesthesia wore off, I saw him sit up in the bed, hours together, facing the wall, sitting straight and meditating. So that was a lesson to me. This 80-plus-year-old monk who has just had an operation, he will not give up a single day's meditation. Swami, this is the story of Swami Vireshwaranji. This story was told by Bhaskaranji, who is the head of the Vedanta Society in Seattle now. So when he was in Belur Math many, many years ago, at that time, Swami Vireshwaranji was the president of the order. And the Swami was not keeping well. He was very advanced in age. He was ill, had a high fever. So Swami Bhaskaranji went to see him in the quarters of the President Maharaj there in Belur Math. And he saw Swami Vireshwaranji was sitting up, propped by pillows and answering letters, in those days by hand. And Swami Bhaskaranji said, but Swami, I heard you were sick, you were ill. You shouldn't strain yourself so much. So Vireshwaranji said, if a sadhu can sit up, he can work. In Bengali, he said, sadhu uthe boste parle kaj korte hobe. So that's the kind of titiksha they wanted, spiritual toughness, fortitude. I remember, once, this is much lower level, at my level, I was a young monk, and one day I was actually a little sick, and there was a meeting at an ashram, and for certain reasons I wanted to get out of the meeting. So I went to the senior monk who was organizing the meeting and said, I'm not going to the meeting, I'm feeling sick. He said very calmly, either you're in the hospital or you're in the meeting, one of the two. If you're really sick, then go to the hospital and stay there. Otherwise, come to the meeting. So that's the thing, that you have to be a little tough on yourself. The famous definition of Titiksha, given by Shankaracharya, it's quoted in this book, of course. This famous definition we all have to memorize. Sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam chinta vilapa rahitam satitiksha nigatyate. Withstanding all kinds of suffering, without recrimination, without grumbling, without complaint, and without too much effort to put things right. It says, apratikara purvakam. Instead of being desperate to put things right, chinta vilapa, without anxiety, without vilapa means regret and grumbling and complaint. That is called titiksha. Calmly go ahead with it. Go ahead with your duties, with your spiritual practice. Don't bother about the small problems of life, no matter how much they're troubling you. One thing is common sense. Common sense is very important here. I have said this earlier, and I'll repeat this example I've mentioned. When I was teaching the Brahmacharis in Training Center, there was one young novice. So he took this to the extremes. He had a pain in the knee, and he kept on flexing his foot in class. It was so distracting. He was flexing his foot in class. Why? It was hurting him. I said, why don't you get it treated? He said, no, I won't. He's practicing titiksha, basically. And he's putting up with all sorts of troubles. But in the meditation hall also, he's stretching his leg forward because he can't sit still. It's hurting him. So he is restless everywhere. I said, you're meditating on your knee. You should meditate on God. Get it treated and get it out of your system, whatever the problem is. So that's one extreme. Shouldn't go to that level where you're falling ill and your mind is on the body all the time. That kind of fortitude is no good. Please take medicine, diet, exercise, whatever, get cured and go move on. The whole point is to be spiritual, not to suffer. The opposite is too much anxiety about the body. I mentioned one young novice who had a stomach pain and who, I've said this earlier again, so who was always anxious. We were getting treatment for him. He went to hospitals and consulted doctors. Nothing was working. He was always anxious. He was unable to eat because he felt it'll hurt again. That tummy pain will come back. Finally, I told him one day that, see, everything is being done. You are doing everything. The doctors are doing everything. We are arranging everything. Now, leave it to God. You concentrate on your study and meditation and work. He's a very good monk. So he did that immediately. And later on, he wrote to me that was very good advice. Now the pain is also cured and I'm very happy now. That was months later. He went to some other ashram. So too much, don't pay attention. Whatever common sense, do that and then bring your mind back to your spiritual practice. Then samadhanam, this is focus. Number 23. Nigrihitasya manasaha shravanado tad anuguna vishayecha samadhihi samadhanam. Here samadhi means concentration, focus. What does this mean? Samadhan is the constant concentration of the mind, thus restrained on hearing, etc., of the scriptural passages and other objects that are conducive to these. So, nigrihitasya manasa, the mind which has now been restrained, focused, concentrated, has been pulled back from distractions. Now that must be focused. See, in monastic life, in spiritual life, you actually clear the decks for action. You give up many other distractions and other responsibilities so that you have time and time and energy for spiritual life. Now that extra time and energy, don't waste it. So this is where the old trope of the lazy monk comes. Having no worldly responsibilities, no worldly concerns, and your food is provided by the householders. You're begging for food and wandering from place to place. The traditional monk, it often turns out to be a beggar and whiling away time because the extra time and energy which that person has got for Vedanta is not being used there. It's just wasted. So don't do that. That nigrihitasya manasa, thus controlled mind, the mind which is thus controlled. Engage it. Samadhi means focus. Concentrate on what? Shravanadu. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. On Vedantic hearing, reflection, meditation. Tad anuguna vishaya. And other things which are helpful to that. Maybe it could, you are working in an ashram or it could be your daily little puja. All things which are helpful to Vedanta. It could also be a little bit of yoga exercise and all, just keeping your health all right. If you're in an ashram, taking care of the ashram, taking care of your guru, all of these are included in anuguna vishaya, helpful activities. You'll see the novices in the training center. They study Vedanta. At the same time, they serve the old monks. They go to the main temple of Sri Ramakrishna. Maybe they're making a garland for Sri Ramakrishna. They're cleaning the temple. These are all anuguna vishaya. These are not distracting. You might say that, do you have to study Vedantasara day and night? No, all other ancillary activities. Then number 24. Shraddha. Guru Upadishta Vedanta Vakyeshu Vishwasaha Shraddha. So, Shraddha means faith. Shraddha is the faith in the truths of Vedanta as taught by the Guru. Guru Upadishta, taught by the Guru. Vedanta Vakya, the sentences of Vedanta. This means Upanishadic sentences. Vishwasaha, faith. What kind of faith? A working faith. That there is something to this. Why working faith? See, there are one kind of faith is God exists, heaven exists. In the Vedic sense, you had to have faith in the Vedic sacrifices that they would get you to heaven because you don't see any direct result in this life. You do Vedic sacrifices and the promises at the end of your life, after death, you go to heaven. How do you know? So you have to have faith. But it's not that kind of faith which is being mentioned here. That's a faith, that's like what is understood as religious faith. Faith in God, which you don't see. Here, it's like a working faith. You follow this, you will get enlightenment. That much is the faith required. If even that is not there, one will not pursue it. You have to pursue it seriously. I often give the example of, suppose you enroll in a physics course at Columbia. So you have some amount of faith in the professor, you have some amount of faith in the syllabus and the textbook. You don't say that the textbook is fake news and the professor is a liar. If you start up like that, there's no way of learning anything. And that's also common sense. Everybody has that much faith in any endeavor that we take up. That much only is required. There is a funny story of in Vrindavan. Vrindavan is really the place of Krishna, Vaishnavas. So one Vaishnava Babaji, means a Vaishnava monk, who decided to change tracks from bhakti track to jnana track, from devotional track to knowledge. So he goes to an Advaita teacher and says, I don't like that path. I think the dualistic path. I want to take up the path of knowledge, non-dualism. Very good. So you start from the beginning, Vedantasara. And then he comes to this place, Viveka, Vairagya, all of that. And then Shraddha, faith in the teachings of Vedanta and Guru. And he says, in Hindi, Kya yahan bhi Shraddha? To mere Gopal Nandan kya dosh kiye the? What? Faith here too. Then what harm did my Gopala, my Krishna do? There is always being told, you have to have faith in Krishna, you have to believe in Krishna. He did not like that so much belief and faith. Who has got so much? And he comes to Vedanta and he is told here, you have to have faith in Guru and the Vedanta. He says, here too there is faith, there is belief. Yeah, but not like that. Finally, and most important, I would say, mumukshutvam mokshecha. Mumukshutva is the yearning for spiritual freedom, intense desire for spiritual freedom. There is one thing in this all that we have been studying, who is qualified for Vedanta? If you're lucky enough to have this desire, a strong desire for enlightenment, all the rest will come by itself. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say that the only thing needed is Vyakulata in the devotional language, intense discontent for God, restlessness for God realization. And then he quotes one verse and brings the topic to an end. The verse is from one of Shankara's famous works, Upadesha Sahasri. So he's quoting first from Upanishad. Why is he doing that? So you'll find the author is always keen to prove that what he's saying is based on Upanishads. Vedanta is the teachings of the Upanishads. So are you, like you are, they say, so kapola kalpitam. Are you imagining all this? Are you being creative and setting forth your own system? Or is it truly what Vedanta teaches? So once in a while he will justify. What I'm saying is just classical Vedanta. It's from the Upanishads. Or he'll quote the Gita. Or sometimes the past masters like Shankara and Sureshwaracharya and others. He does both here. He quotes Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and Shankaracharya. So I'll read this and then stop and take questions. Evam bhutaha pramata adhikari shanto danta ityadi shrutehe uktam cha prashanta chittaya jitendrayaya cha prahina doshaya yathoktakarine gunanvitaya anugataya sarvada pradeyametat satatam mumukshave iti. So such an aspirant is the qualified student. It is said in the Shruti, quiet, subdued, etc. It is further said, this is always to be taught to one who is of tranquil mind, who has subjugated his senses, who is free from faults, obedient, endowed with virtues, always submissive, who is constantly eager for liberation. This is a quote from Upadesha Sahasri. Basically what it means is, there's a quote from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Shantodanta, peaceful, controlled. What is it a reference to? Shama and Dhamma. So the teacher is saying, look, that Shama, Dhamma, etc., which I said, 6 treasures I mentioned, it is indicated in the Upanishads, indicated. You will not find exactly this list. Remember, this is a compilation based on all the Upanishads together and a systematization. So whatever you read here, when we go to the Upanishads after this, you will find these things scattered all across the Upanishads. And the same thing Shankaracharya has said in this very beautiful verse. Qualifications of a student. That funny story is there, that a student goes to an ashram to learn Vedanta. And he says, what can I do here? And somebody in the ashram says, well, there are 2 kinds of people here. There are students and there's the guru. Oh, What are the duties of a student? Well, the student has to be disciplined and get up very early in the morning. He has to serve the guru. He has to clean the ashram. He has to attend classes. He has to memorize, verses, and there'll be exams. It's a tough life. Okay. And what does the guru do? Oh, he gives a few lectures, maybe. Oh, good. I'll be a guru then. So that nobody wants to be a student. Student has very strict qualifications. All right. So this is the first of the four. Qualified seeker. Fine. Let's look at the questions.
My question is relating to verse 17 and earthly transient objects. I attended this academic conference, Science of Consciousness, last month, virtually, run by University of Arizona, and many of the luminaries in consciousness studies were there. And one of the plenary sessions was on psychedelics, psilocybin, as mainstream therapeutic tools in psychiatry. And they see great potential in it. And it's not transitory because it has to be taken only once, apparently, and the changes in consciousness are permanent. Of course, the only problem is that these things are illegal. But then I was also thinking about the ninth mandala of the Rig Veda, which is supposed to be the Soma mandala. And it's a paean to its properties and all that. So these are earthly things, I guess, but also mentioned in the Vedas. So what is your perspective on that?
All right. First of all, using drugs to alter one's psychological state, that is not something that would be recommended, though the effects were well known. For example, the Patanjali Yoga Sutra actually mentions that by the use of certain drugs, one can have altered states of consciousness, which is what much later, Alpert, Timothy Leary at Harvard, they were Harvard psychologists. Ramdas, who became Ramdas later on. So they experimented. They started up the whole the LSD culture and everything like that. Yes. Remember, it's not an alternation of consciousness. From a Vedantic perspective, it's an effect on the mind. So there's a clear difference between the mind and consciousness. So it can have an effect on the mind. That's true. But remember, that's still transient. That which has a beginning will also have an end. When they say it has a lasting effect, it just means it's a long-lasting effect. It just doesn't go away so easily. It's more stable. That's what they mean for this particular drug you're talking about. Second, yes, the Vedas do mention a lot of worldly results and otherworldly results. There are, you'll find constant reference to, may our progeny increase, maybe have more cattle, maybe have more wealth. That is repeated again and again. So the kind of things people in the Vedic times might want for a pleasant life, for a good life. Of course, it's there. So that's the lower kind of religion. That's what is called karma kanda. Remember, we are talking about Vedanta here. Vedanta is Upanishads. Upanishads are the final teachings of Vedanta, what we talked about in the earlier classes. The very meaning of Vedanta is the end, final, highest teachings of Vedanta. What are the other teachings? The other teachings are exactly what you are being asked to give up here. Those are also included in the Vedas. They are not Vedanta. What are the other teachings? By these rituals, by the worship of the Vedic gods, you get worldly prosperity. By the performance of Vedic rites, you get passage to heavens afterwards. But what is being mentioned here is all of them, as pleasant as they're all product of karma. Being products of karma, they are impermanent. That's what was mentioned here. All the products of karma, which are impermanent, they are to be given up. Because you have already made a decision in your mind. Vairagya is the giving up of the impermanent. There's a difference between the permanent and the impermanent. The permanent is Brahman and the rest is impermanent. That which is impermanent, the Vedas, religion itself shows you a way, a religious way, a moral, ethical way of attaining your goals in life. Remember the four goals: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Moksha is spiritual liberation. But what about the other three? There is artha, worldly prosperity. There is pleasure, kama, and there is dharma, morality. One way of understanding morality is good karma done, and the result of that will be artha and kama, pleasant things in this life. another way of interpreting dharma is those ritualistic actions which will produce heaven in the life after this. Vedanta is saying all of that can no longer be your goal in life. That is not spiritual. That is very worldly, this worldly or next worldly. That is the Vedic understanding of conventional religion. It's very much there all around you. People go to churches and temples, all the long lines in Dakshineshwar Kali temple where Sri Ramakrishna used to stay. On Tuesdays and Saturdays, you'd find long lines before queues to offer pranams and puja to the Divine Mother Kali. Are they all there for a vision of the Divine Mother like Ramakrishna? Are they all there for moksha and brahmajnana? Not at all. Not at all. They are there for exactly these things. What you read in the Vedic, they're not there for cattle, but they might want SUVs and jobs and whatever. So yeah, so there's the lower religion, which in the Vedic structure would be the karma kanda, the ritualistic portion. And there's the higher religion, which is this, Vedanta, where the goal is moksha. Otherwise, what's the goal? Dharma artha kama. Religion tells you, instead of pursuing it immorally, instead of pursuing it instinctively, trying to, money and pleasure, that's all I want in life. No, that's not sustainable. That's damaging for you, that's bad karma for you and bad for society. We will show you an ethical, sustainable way of attaining your worldly goals and other worldly goals. That's there everywhere. I mean, in the Christian church, for example, right here, very popular form of Christianity is what is called the prosperity gospel. So there are people who say that Jesus wants you to be rich. That's an oversimplification of the term. But why should you not do well in this life? So that's the idea, that this world. But the real Christianity is beyond this. Real Christianity is God realization. Similarly, in every religion. Okay. Then Dimitri.
Hello, Swamiji.
Yes.
I just recently joined and I'm relatively new, probably completely new to these subjects. And I'm trying to understand when we speak of I, and do we mean in this particular context that there is some temporary I in the mind that is trying to achieve through efforts all of these qualifications and expand on these qualifications under the watch of the real I, which is Brahma?
True. Here the I just means the person, Dimitri, because we have not yet started the inquiry into the I. So the discovery of Brahman or the Atman, the witness consciousness, all of that is going to come later. It's just the person who has come to learn Vedanta. These are the preliminary qualifications. What does that person think of himself or herself? I am this person. I am Swami or I am Dimitri. Just this mix of body and mind. Mm-hmm. That's what you're talking about. That analysis will start later as we enter into the actual subject matter. These are preliminaries. Then Gabriel says, I think also Aldous Huxley used drugs. Yes, he did. In fact, he was a disciple of Swami Prabhavanandaji, and that was one point where they disagreed. Swami Prabhavanandaji in Hollywood, he told Aldous Huxley again and again not to do it. So he was very interested in the effects of drugs on altered mind states. And Swami Prabhavanandaji said that kind of samadhi, those experiences are to be attained through yogic discipline, not by taking drugs.
Swamiji, in scriptures we hear the word Sankalpa.
Yes.
Does it mean strong will, and does it help in God realization?
Sankalpa means strong will, yes, it helps in God realization. But remember, when you hear the word Sankalpa in a puja, in a ritual, there it means the desire you want to, I resolve to perform this puja of Shiva or of Narayana or the Devi. May these blessings descend upon us. The whole statement will be called a Sankalpa. And you do that before the puja. So that's a ritual done with desire. Here the Sankalpa is, may we have Viveka, Vairagya, the qualifications for spiritual life. May we have devotion to God. So that would be the Sankalpa here. May we hold on to this path until God realization. Sankalpa means the resolve that is taken. when you start out on any kind of religious endeavor. It could be the ritualistic part of religion, the lower religion, worldly kind of religion, or this higher path. Why I'm saying this, in Bhagavad Gita, you will find Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman Sarvan Tyaktva. Give up all activities or desires which are born of Sankalpa. So their Sankalpa means this resolve to, perform a puja, perform a ritual with a desire. Those things have to be given up for Vedanta. You can see why people would think, so this means we have to become monks. This is what Krishna taught Arjuna. No, you can practice this wherever you are. It's an internal thing. Monastic life is a good stage, a good setup for practicing this. But one can do that. The whole point is to be monk-like internally. That's the whole point. All right. Let me conclude here today. We have finished Adhikari, which is very important. These 4 things: Viveka, Vairagya, the 6 treasures, and Mumukshutvam. These 4 are very important for our practical spiritual life. We will learn many, many things on this journey, very deep truths. But notice that when you have any serious problem or question about your practical, personal, spiritual life, it's always good to look back upon these 4 and see what's going wrong there. Mostly we will find something is lacking there. Okay, an important secret to be shared here. I mentioned this earlier again and again. These 4 are mentioned whenever you start Vedanta. Most Vedanta texts will start with these 4. One secret about these 4 is they are causally connected, not casually, causally. The first one causes the next one causes the third one, and so on. So what I mean by that is, if somebody feels one of them is lacking, don't fight your battle there. I don't have this passion. I still have a lot of desires. I'm struggling with this passion. Don't. That will be a tough battle. What it says is that is caused by the earlier one. Dispassion is the second one. What's the first one? Discernment, viveka. If vairagya is poor, if vairagya is not up to the mark, then go back to the earlier practice, viveka, and strengthen that. Deepen your conviction. There is an ultimate goal of a human life, a spiritual goal, really, really worth having. So many saints and sages in all religions strived for it, attained it. That is the purpose of my life. When you strengthen that, you come back into Vairagya, you will see your dispassion for other things has increased. And your desire for enlightenment has increased. When you increase these 2, Viveka and Vairagya, the disciplines of mind and body, Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, they will increase. When all these 3 are strong, then that intense desire for liberation, it will come. One can't force oneself to have an intense desire for liberation. You can't simulate that. You strengthen the earlier ones, the next one will come. So this is a good insight to have, that they are causally connected. One thing is weak, don't fight your battle there. Go to the earlier one and strengthen that one. Okay, on that note, let me end. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. All right, take care. Pray to the Divine Mother. This is Durga Puja time this month. Divine Mother to protect all of us. Let me see all of you. Yes, do take care. All right. Ram Krishna.